Hello, America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck program. I want to talk to you about, in a roundabout way, the things that were talked about last night, except we didn't really talk about them. And as you will see by the end of this hour, we really need to talk about what is happening in our country. One of the most controversial policy proposals, apparently, that Donald Trump has talked about this election is something that shouldn't be controversial at all. But the left and the mainstream media are absolutely freaking out. If you know history, they should not be. The proposal is mass deportation. And after you see what I'm about to show you, you make the call. I truly believe this may be our last chance. The decision that's going to be made in 4 or 5 weeks is a decision that may decide whether we live in peace or mourn another 9/11 kind of attack, or if our republic even stands. This topic is very, very serious. The case for mass deportation is not racist, nor is it heartless. It is honestly, as JD Vance said in the debate, common sense. And we don't have much time left before the unthinkable happens, as I'll show you later in the show. You do not want to miss any of this episode. Now, this is not an abstract issue anymore. It never was for border communities, but now it is a national threat that the entire country is now experiencing, and catastrophe is coming. Now, there are two words that I want you to keep in mind throughout tonight's show, and it's these two. Asymmetric warfare. What is that? Well, warfare between opposing forces which differ greatly in power and that typically involves the use of unconventional weapons or tactics. We've seen this for the last 25 years. The kinetic hit-and-run tactics, guerrilla warfare, IEDs, terrorism, Saddam's Republican Guard, the Al-Qaeda terror cells, all of these things. In Iraq, Saddam's Republican Guards threw their uniforms off and fought disguised as civilians. In bin Laden's Al-Qaeda cells, they split all around the entire world, blended into the population, and waited for the order to activate. These are examples of kinetic asymmetric warfare. And later on in the program, I'll show you how our enemies are using immigration and our open borders to attack us. It is coming. And the threat has never been more close. Over the weekend, Israel successfully killed the leader of one of the largest terrorist organizations in the entire world, Hezbollah. I say one of, because the largest terror organization in the world, and it's not even close, is an entire country, Iran. And they are the ones holding Hezbollah's leash. Hezbollah has been planning asymmetric warfare for nearly half a century, and I'll show you later in the show. They have established a beachhead in South America. Why this isn't the biggest story in the Northern Hemisphere, I don't know. But they've held meetings, and they are coordinating with our enemies in South American countries that are hostile to the United States. Asymmetric warfare is what they do best. Establishing and operating terror cells is what they do. Now, how many of them are currently in the United States? How many just walked across the border due to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's policies? Israel was absolutely right to take out the head of Hezbollah. They understand all too well that they have a bloodthirsty enemy directly on their border. But our own politicians don't. Or they do, and they have different goals. I know they have the same information that I have and that you will have in the next hour. So what is the reason they're turning a blind eye? Because if you turn a blind eye, it's going to make it much, much worse. Is it that our own elected leaders are involved in another form of asymmetric warfare? A political form of warfare? I have talked about American asymmetrical warfare in the past, the political version, and it's Cloward and Piven. Overwhelm and collapse. welfare, healthcare, mass mail-in voting, Green New Deal, open borders, just spread ourselves so thin that we eventually collapse into a new system that is already planned and ready to go. Kamala Harris is in such a tough interview over the Democratic battleground of MSNBC, and she was talking about how she would address the communities that have been devastated by the border crisis. She first mentions the failed immigration bill that would have actually made the situation much, much worse. But then she says this.
And my pledge is that when elected president, if the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
Records amounts of illegals pouring over the border with no end in sight. And the current plan by the left is to make as many of them citizens as quickly as possible. Now, how does that address the things like what's happening in cities all over the country, like Springfield, Ohio? How does that fix a city of 50,000 suddenly dealing with an influx of about 20,000 non-citizens? How does that help their public services that are overwhelmed? The hospitals, police, fire, schools, food, jobs, housing. And this is the same for communities all across America right now. If it hasn't happened to your town, it will. Last week, the LA Times reported in the middle of the biggest illegal alien crisis in our lifetime, the United States is approving citizenship applications at the fastest speed in years. Now, is that what we need right now? Just quick, let's make everybody a citizen. Is that what we need as cities are being overwhelmed, as border communities are on the brink of collapse, as war with terror organizations are happening all over the world, and they have operatives on our borders that are ramping up unlike ever before? The answer to these questions is obviously, of course not. Unless the entire idea is asymmetric warfare, to overwhelm and collapse. And we know how the left and the media will ultimately attack us for talking about this. They're going to call us racist and bigots. They'll call us literally Hitler. There are two words that I cannot use on today's show. I'll point them out to you later. Otherwise, the algorithms will demonetize us and make sure that nobody really sees this. But what if one of your own in the biggest city in the country says this?
This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We had a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted.
You're going to feel this beginning in 2025 and beyond, especially if it continues. Now, that's New York City Mayor Eric Adams actually stating the truth, the obvious. That was 1 year ago, last September. Now, 12 months later, this happened. Adams is being indicted for corruption. What? Was he having his family do multi-million-dollar business deals in places like China or Ukraine or Romania or Kazakhstan? Was his information or administration leveraging the Justice Department to keep his children out of jail and using crack and ordering hookers where we have all of the evidence we need? Was his entire family getting secret payments through a shady lawyer to allegedly conceal the multi-million-dollar deals? No. Well, not exactly. Details are still coming out. But the details we have, it sounds like he got a few airline and hotel upgrades before he was mayor. When will they learn? You have to have your son accept the bribes and then you launder it through your family. Don't also talk about the effects of illegal immigration. Your fellow Democrats will leave you alone if you just don't say anything. Play ball. President Trump has proposed a plan that could begin to fix this entire dumpster fire. But time is running out faster than you might think. I'm going to give you a little bit of history and show you the plan and what's actually happening next. So, literally every day we move closer to potential war with countries like Russia and China, even North Korea. Just the ports closing. In 3 weeks, you're going to feel this intensely. In 3 and 4 weeks, we'll be on a course that will lead us right to the same kind of thing we were dealing with COVID, inflation and products that aren't there. 93, I think it's 92 or 93% of all of our medicine, our drugs, come through those ports. Great. So what's going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks if this continues? What happens to the medical community? What happens to our medicine? What happens to the sick people? Please prepare yourself with the JACE case. It is a personalized emergency kit that contains essential antibiotics and medications that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. It provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. You just fill out a simple form online. You'll have it in case you need it. And there are add-on options too, like EpiPens and ivermectin. Go to jase.com. Enter the promo code Beck at checkout for a discount on your order. Promo code Beck, jase.com. All right. Let me show you President Trump about a week ago on part of his plan for mass deportation. Watch.
I'll take it out of the military because this is an invasion. If you remember, I built hundreds of miles of wall. Much of it I built through the military. I took it out because I considered it an invasion of our country, and I'll do it through the military if I have to.
Okay. Funding the entire operation is but part of his plan. But the rest of the details haven't fully come out yet. Trump has stated in the past he's ready to declare the border crisis an invasion and invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This would open up the possibilities of red state governors to draw resources from the National Guard. Just the mere fact that I had to say red state governors, not all governors, that he would have to jump through all of these hoops to deport illegal aliens, criminals, from the country is absolutely mind-boggling. But if you happen to watch the vice presidential debate, that's not compassionate. That's never been done before. That makes us Nazis, right? Even the lawyers from the left-wing think tank Brennan Center have said that Trump's proposal is lawful. But that hasn't stopped the media from freaking out. They're calling Trump's climate of fear and saying that mass deportation will bring nothing but human misery. Business Insider tried to make the case that it would make the economy worse, which for Business Insider to say that is weird because I don't write for a business website, and even I know that Jerome Powell just blamed illegal immigration on rising unemployment. So which one is it? Is it good for the economy or is it bad? Are you a good witch or a bad witch? Will mass deportation suddenly cause the entire country to implode into an unholy mess and leave the nation under the control of Nazis and the Hitler Youth? Well, it turns out we've gone down this road before, and all we have to do is look it up. Let's look up some history. And for some odd reason, This has happened before, and we're still here. Yeah. And this is still the greatest and most virtuous nation on the planet. So let me take you through a little history and see what everybody's freaking out about, shall we? Let's start in 1929. From 1929 to 1933, 1.2 million illegals were deported. Really? Back to Mexico. Huh. Then you go to Eisenhower. I can't tell you the name of the operation, but it starts with a W and ends in a K and has et-ac in the middle. 1.1, 1.3 million deported. Now remember, this is, I can't say what that operation was. I can't say it because it's demonized as the worst. Well, of course it's the worst. Herbert Hoover, Republican. Eisenhower, Republican. Oh, until you get to Bill Clinton, who deported 12 million or had voluntary removal. Exactly what Donald Trump is saying, that the left is saying can't happen. It will destroy everything. It'll be chaos. Cats and dogs will be sleeping together. It will be a nightmare. Except Mr. Democrat himself, the man that brought the party back from extinction, that Bill Clinton, you know, the first black president, 12 million. Huh. So it can be done. Now, under George W. Bush from 2001 to 2009, 2 million were deported. Under Barack Obama from 2009 to 2017, 3 million were deported. Yes, the progressive Jesus himself. Oh, he just didn't love people. But immigration advocates knew him by another name, the deporter-in-chief. Now, you look at all these numbers. Now, these are, classified as mass deportations. And then I want you to look at Mr. Hitler himself, the Trump administration from 2017 to 2021. 935,000 were deported. Nowhere near either Bill Clinton nor Barack Obama. But now we face a legitimate crisis and everyone's freaking out. How can this be? That can't be done. It'll be crazy. We're a bigger country in 2024 than we were in the 90s under Bill Clinton. And this time, it is a crisis. It's not some intangible threat anymore. Americans are seeing the ramification from some of the largest cities to the smallest Midwestern towns. Let me show you a map. This map was produced by the Center for Immigration Studies. Now, this thing identifies every city, county, and state in America that has self-identified as official sanctuary city for illegal aliens. Do you live near or by any of these areas? You might want to think about moving in this area. Okay? These are places that refuse to cooperate with the immigration officers if they see an illegal alien come through their system. Are they criminals? It doesn't matter to these elected officials in these areas. And who could these illegals be? Well, let me tell you. Last week, from ICE, this administration's ICE, they released new information to Congress. They identified 600,000 illegals that were released into our country that have criminal records. That includes 13,000 murderers and 16,000 found from sexual assault, like rape. Oh, let's let them in. Thousands and thousands of criminals are roaming the streets of America. This is exactly what everyone has been making fun and saying Donald Trump is a madman when he said they're opening up their prisons. That's exactly what they've done with the help of our government. And the left is coddling them like innocent little toddlers. American citizens are getting raped. They are murdered by some of these illegal aliens, the known criminals. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't seem to give a flying crap. Now, the vast amount of these illegals coming across are coming from countries now considered hostile to the United States. If we could have the 2001, late 2001, maybe October 2001 versions of ourselves, they would club us to death for being this stupid. These are official numbers directly from the Border Patrol website that show the encounters from hostile nations were around 144,000 the first year after Trump left office. It's only gotten worse. Those numbers are more than doubling to 400,000 a year later. Then it doubled again last year. We're not even finished with this fiscal year, and we're on pace to match those numbers from 2023. These are numbers that are people coming from hostile, like Iran and Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now, over the last 2 years, over 250 illegals on the terrorist watch list that we know of were trying to cross the border. Want to guess how many were released into the country? 99. Why would one of them be released into the country? And if that doesn't sound worrisome enough, look what else is getting smuggled across the border. Now, I just want to remind you, they hate guns. Guns are dangerous. We have to take all the guns away from the citizens. I mean, the spooky guns, anything that shoots bullets. In this year alone, nearly 1 million rounds of ammunition we have found coming across the border. Around 9,000 magazines. And that's not like, boys' life. 1.2 million gun parts. 3,000 silencers, and over 3,000 body armor vests. Now, what do you suppose those good folks that are just coming to make their life better in America are using body armor and silencers for? This is not a problem just for Texas anymore. Our border communities down in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, just decimated by this. I showed you that map of sanctuary cities, these dangerous illegal aliens, potentially armed with smuggled weapons and ammunition, might be in your community right now. There might be really good people that also broke the law and came here. But who's who? Let me show you. 4 illegals were charged with raping or sexually assaulting children in Nantucket. We're seeing a lot more, and it spreads to small towns in places like Ohio and Colorado. Why not? There are 15,000 rapists or sexual assault people coming into the country. Let them in. Of course there's more rape. Of course there's more child porn, child smuggling, child abuse. How did we get here? Well, your mood's not going to improve. You don't have to look further than the Biden-Harris administration. Christopher Rufo recently followed the money trail that enabled violent Venezuelan gang members to terrorize apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado. This is infuriating. I want to start at the end. I want to start where you picked the story up. We picked the story up. Venezuelan gangs. They began harassing an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. And the story went viral when the footage from a doorbell camera captured the entire thing. That apartment complex was managed by a company called CBZ Management. Okay? A year before you saw this happen, a year before that, they were approached by representatives from a non-governmental organization, an NGO, that was offering a sizable amount of money to subsidize the rent for newly arrived migrants. Okay, so Chris Rufo traced some of that money. Okay, 2 of the NGOs, Papagayo and Vive, is that what it is? Vive Wellness. They were assisting with Colorado Asylum Seekers Program. These are the compassionate people here. Millions of dollars being funneled through NGOs. This way, they could resettle illegals into communities like the apartments in Aurora, Colorado. So these NGOs, among others, gave the money, set them up, and then just let the ticking time bomb go off. Now, this isn't because Colorado decided to declare themselves a sanctuary state and give their finger to the federal law. No. The original funds came from much higher. See here, the money train goes here. Colorado's Asylum Seekers Program. Okay? That's a state office. But where'd they get the money? They got the money. $3.8 billion for Colorado alone in 2021. Do you remember when I think it was ARP, right? The American Rescue Plan. Remember, that was to rescue us from, all of the problems that we had from COVID, because we had to get our businesses back on the feet. Okay, so just for Colorado, $3.8 billion went to fund this scheme with people like this that ended up there. Billions of dollars of your tax money are funding the lawlessness of our country. And it was all done by Biden and Harris saying, no, really, you've got to be compassionate. We have to help these poor businesses that are out of control and these people who have lost their jobs. That money was earmarked for this program. This benefits the rogue states, the elected city managers, the private NGOs, the property managers. All the while, you suffer because they spent $3.8 billion just in Colorado. Where'd they get that money? They printed it. What does that do? Well, that means there's more money in the system and you pay higher prices for everything. God, I don't know what's wrong with us. What is it going to take? The Constitution is hanging by a thread. When will you rise up and make sure that everyone you know is voting? They're all sucking off the teat of the U.S. federal government, which is bleeding you dry. This is what Trump inherits when he wins in November. But the threat? As large as this seems, the collapse of the system, the Cloward and Piven, oh no, that's just the beginning. As I said earlier, your mood's not going to improve much, but you need to know it, and we go there next. I don't think there's anything that can stop the blood shooting from your eyes or your head exploding. However, if you have inflammation and aches and pains, and it's not because you feel like the federal government has just rammed this up, everything else can be taken care of with Relief Factor. It's a daily 100% drug-free supplement that doesn't simply mask your pain for a short time. It helps your body eliminate it for good. It uses a unique formula of natural ingredients. So you know what? You don't have to go to a pharmaceutical company. This is all natural. Over 1 million people have tried Relief Factor. 70% of them have gone on to order more because it works, and I'm one of them. Give Relief Factor a try with their 3-week quick start, $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Try it and see how you can help turn the clock back on your pain. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF. 800, the number 4-RELIEF, relieffactor.com. All right. I want to go back to the idea of asymmetric warfare. I want you to check this article out from the Washington Post. The Post described Israel's pager attack on Hezbollah as an example of red button capability. A red button is something an adversary sets up that, quote, can remain dormant for months, if not years, before being activated. Okay. That's an amazing example of the kind of asymmetric warfare. But our enemies, they're a lot less tech savvy, at least yet. But a red button is exactly what we now have being built within our own borders. The apartment complex violence in Aurora, Colorado, brought out a name that you might have just learned. You heard it in states all across the country now. Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua is a still white. Anyway, it is now a real problem. The gang comes from Venezuela, and it is widely known that they used Biden and the Harris border crisis to infiltrate the United States. Okay, so what? It's a gang, right? Well, their members have been linked to Laken Riley's murder in Georgia, into the New York City that when the police officers were attacked. They're also using migrant shelters, hiding in plain sight, and building a criminal empire. In Texas, they are raping and murdering children. And in Chicago, the Venezuelan gang has all but declared war on the native street gangs that have been terrorizing Chicago for decades. This is a powder keg ready to explode. Now, we know, thanks to a leak given to James O'Keefe, that the U.S. Army is now concerned about this new threat from Venezuela. This map from the leak details the known operating locations the gang has spread out to. Notice, over here especially, they're everywhere. That's where the bulk of the population lives in America. So what's going on? Okay, here's where I'm going to wreck your mood, because I know it's happy so far. This report from the Insight Crime states that this gang works alongside the Venezuelan government, something else that Donald Trump said and everyone dismissed. This is part of their hybrid governance system. They, quote, enforce the government's will, much like a militant civilian group that suppresses political opposition. And how far does their relationship with Venezuela's government go? Well, they've actually been accused by the Chilean government of carrying out a political assassination on an opponent of President Maduro. But let's go back to that leak from the Army. The documents here will show you details multiple attacks on U.S. military facilities. They have fired multiple shots at Lackland Air Force Base here in Texas. At that same base, members of the gang were suspected of taking surveillance photos and videos that same month. One day later, a member of the gang was caught attempting to gain access to another military base in Texas, Fort Sam Houston. Now, I'm sure these are unrelated, or they are probing attacks and surveillance. But they aren't merely focused on military bases. They've also been caught organizing and working in concert with Cuban nationals at the largest oil field in the United States, the Permian Basin. They're checking out and probing our military bases. They're identifying our economic hubs. They're building their numbers through migrant facilities, and they've spread their tentacles all over the United States. Why is no one in the press and no one in the federal government taking this more seriously? Finally, 2 weeks ago, the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, designated the terrorist group Tren de Aragua. I'm getting so close. I mean, if it wasn't for the skin color, he just labeled them a terrorist organization. Texas is the only one not messing around. And for good reason. Check this quote out from the U.S. Army leak. The links between Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah are strengthened by the support of the Venezuelan dictatorship, which responds to the influence of Cuba and a superior one from Russia. There are growing concerns that these connections are transforming from criminal activities to acts of urban terrorism. In other words, the Biden-Harris group helped our enemies to gain red button capability by ignoring and enabling the border crisis for 4 years. You might say, your friends might say, you wouldn't say this, your friends might say, oh, that's ridiculous. They have no idea. The world is currently on fire. Has anybody noticed that? We are having actual discussions at the highest levels of governments all over the world about the use of nuclear weapons. We are currently, directly or indirectly, a participant in 2 major regional wars, from Ukraine and Russia to Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. We're going to be involved in these if this isn't stopped. Do you think that these terrorists are here and they're not going to use moments like the election? You really think that these people are here and we're just going to woo them over to our side because, look, you could have air conditioning and a new car? Did Biden and Harris give all of these enemies a first strike opportunity through the border crisis? You will find, I believe, the answer to be yes, but only time will tell. For 4 years, the border has been all but open to South America. And I think you'll be shocked about what they're building down there over the past couple of decades. I'm sorry, I have to say it again. What I'm going to show you next is not going to improve your mood much. Next. Okay. Hey, have you heard about the cyber scammers on the news that tried to steal Graceland from Elvis Presley's family? Yeah. The FBI calls this house stealing. They stole Graceland. Yeah. Remember, the story was they couldn't pay their bills. And I remember hearing that going, Graceland can't pay their bills? What? When was the last time you checked on the title of your home? Why? Well, because the only reason why this one was stopped and caught was because it was Graceland. So everybody in the world went, wait, what? You need protection from a new cyber scam where the equity in your home is the target. If nobody is watching, scammers will transfer your home title name to their name, then take out fraudulent loans, steal your identity, your equity, and leave you with the financial and emotional nightmare. Protect your equity. Despicable things are happening, and everybody's after your stuff. Triple lock protection now from our friends at Home Title Lock. Make sure your home's title is still in your name. Just sign up with your address at HometitleLock.com. Make sure you use the promo code BLAZE. You're going to receive a complete title scan of your home's title, and the first 30 days of triple lock home protection will be free for you. Do it today. HometitleLock.com. Promo code BLAZE. HometitleLock.com. It's an insult to injury that it took, stupid cat memes on the internet for the media and the Democrats to finally talk about the potential ramification and threats from the border and illegal alien crisis that we're in. We're no longer a serious country, and that is painfully obvious to the rest of the world. We're just, we're caught up here. Let me give you a little update on who we are currently considering hostile and who their allies and proxies are. So, hostile countries, Russia and China, considered our biggest geopolitical rivals, and we're now engaged with Russia in a kinetic war through our proxy, Ukraine. Russia is allied with Iran, who happens to call us the big Satan. The little Satan is Israel, who's now waging a war on 2 of Iran's proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah. And as I showed you from that U.S. Army leak, all of the above seem to have some weird relationship with some countries in South America. I'm going to come back to that. Now, how might these enemies take advantage of our border? What could they possibly be planning? Well, it was last year that FBI Director Christopher Wray warned that the war in the Middle East could open up the attacks for Hamas here in the U.S. But is that even serious? Well, yeah, it is. And here's a little Hamas in the United States history for the thousands of misguided youths, media, and academics. In 1993, the FBI wiretapped a secret Muslim Brotherhood meeting in Philadelphia. That uncovered a plot by their U.S.-based organizations to fund Hamas with millions of dollars to wage war on Israel. The entire meeting was how to deceive the American people. One high-ranking member said, and I quote, "I swear to Allah that war is deception. Deceive your enemy." He then stressed the importance to influence Congress and infiltrate the American media outlets, universities, and research centers. Isn't it weird? Because none of that happened, of course. But isn't it weird that those are all the American institutions right now that always seem to defend Hamas and demonize Israel? And keep in mind, the entire purpose of this meeting was to facilitate jihad through Hamas against Israel with American donation dollars. One of the attendees of that secret meeting was a public relations director named Nihad Awad. He was never indicted. In fact, Awad became the chairperson of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. That guy started CARE, or became the head of CARE, and authorities believed that that was the under-the-radar New Front organization that had no evident ties to Hamas. However, let me show you a photo of Awad with both Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. Infiltration? Complete, I guess? If you were to ask any of the FBI agents that wiretapped that secret meeting, if you ask any of the federal attorneys that prosecuted this case, I think they'd say, yeah, Hamas is pretty active, still very much active in the United States. But we don't know. We don't know. We're not going to be told. Is anybody even looking into it? We don't know how many Hamas cells are currently in the country. We don't know how many more are coming across the border. But here's what we do know, that some of the most dangerous terrorists in the world have been gathering in South America for a long time now. They've been doing it in tandem with our enemies. I showed you the secret Hamas meeting in Philadelphia. Well, here's another little secret meeting. This document is from congressional testimony from 2011 by the Committee on Homeland Security. It describes a, quote, secret summit that was held in Caracas in Venezuela on August 2010. You see, the president, Hugo Chavez, invited and hosted the supreme leader of Hamas and the chief of operations for Hezbollah and the Secretary General of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. What? Is this why Obama became the deporter-in-chief and began one of the biggest second biggest mass deportation in recent memory? But he never called it mass deportation. Get ready, because this gets worse. Iranians right now are on an island off the coast of Venezuela, Margarita Island. They are running money laundering operations, establishing paramilitary training centers, recruiting Venezuelan gangs, and sending them to Iran for follow-on training. Our government knows all of this. They have every single member in this terror plot mapped out all the way from the head of the Venezuelan government to the middlemen to the heads of both Hezbollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Why would we give Iran money? Interesting question, isn't it? They have all of their networks and their cells mapped out to the exact cities where they operate with and without of Venezuela. Gang members. The gang members Iran is recruiting come from the neighborhood watch communities. Now, they have a different understanding of neighborhood watch. These are thugs that overtake communities and are loyal to Maduro. This is what this gang was doing in Venezuela. One intelligence expert in South America stated, quote, "It would not be surprising that Iran and Hezbollah already present in the region for a long time, are training, advising, and financing criminal activities such as those of the Tren de Aragua. Now, this gang has used the border crisis to infiltrate the United States of America. This is the gang that has been labeled a terrorist organization in Texas. This is the gang that is surveilling and probing military bases. They are moving our largest energy assets, and they're moving on them. They're monitoring them, being caught around them. They're setting up networks in migrant facilities and apartment complexes. At what point do you recognize this was an invasion? At what point does anyone with the public ask, where are they getting their orders from? Is it from Venezuela? Is it from Hezbollah? Is it from Russia? Is it from Iran? Much of this terror coordination in Venezuela began under Obama. He went on to mass deport it like it was nobody's business. Now, why is this such a controversial topic today? Crisis has never been greater on the border. The threat, both the criminal and terror, has never been more imminent. The networks and training have been going on now for over a decade, and now we have those trained Venezuelan gangs operating with impunity inside our country. This is not an intangible talking political point anymore. I would say we could be, but I'm telling you now, we are looking at asymmetric warfare with red button capability inside the United States. And this administration has allowed it to happen and, in their own special way, encouraged it. The case for mass deportation has already been made. The only question is it too late before Donald Trump can begin it in January 20th? Tomorrow, I'm going to be down on the ground of Appalachia. I'm going to do the radio show, and then I fly out. We're delivering a plane full of stuff, and then we're taking helos into Asheville. And then I'll be back for the broadcast the next morning. All of this stuff is going to be solved by us, we the people, being good and kind to one another and standing up. The republic is at stake. Will you stand for her and vote?